Hello everyone, welcome back to Bombe. In between episodes, I was looking around for puzzles that seemed approachable, and I remembered there's this filter button here. Because I was looking at this puzzle, and it was much more complicated than this. And it was hard to work out why the rules I thought should have done something hadn't. And I remembered you can start filtering, say, show me only regions that intersect with these squares, but not those squares. Stuff like that. So I eventually got to here where, I don't know, I mean, this isn't actually what I wanted to do. But I realized there's at least this one rule that I could have made a while ago. You know, if there's two regions that are exactly overlapping and one is bigger than the other, you know, you can... do I care if they... Yeah, if these were zero, if these were non-zero, that would be a problem. Yeah, if they share the same view of all their cells, you can throw away the less constraining one. So if we had an X or more here, and an X plus Y or more here, I could throw away the X or more, and it agrees. It tells me this does not lose information. So now the 0 or more is gone. That's something at least. How much? Oh yeah, this rule... No, this rule is firing a little. Hang on. Why is this one still firing? I thought the robots were done? They're not. Okay. Not sure about that. So I've been sitting here staring at the screen for a while. I would have thought the robots would be done, but I guess I wasn't watching. And maybe they restart anytime you add a rule, even if that rule is just new trashing? I guess it makes sense, because if there are too many regions in a puzzle, the game does just like give up after a while. And so a new trashing region rule, rather, could allow it to make more progress on a level that had gotten too congested otherwise. So, okay, it's really hard to... So these gray cells, I guess this one is gray. Is that what's going on? These two are gray. Yeah, well, they're certainly different parity than these. -2 or more. I mean, that is not really saying anything, right? Because it couldn't become more negative than 2. So maybe I can also say, if we have like x minus 9 or more, no matter how big the positive side is, if there are at most... No? Because I want to say if there are at most positive 2 cells here. But I can't do that. Because I can't say, give me the, you know, invert X. Like, I mean, I could just do this. If there are 2... You could say 2 or more, but in fact just 2 is enough. Because there could never... No, you could say 2 or fewer, rather. But there can never be only 1, right? So, like, I could just trash this. This region is unnecessary. In principle, it could be useful to interact with another rule of mine that sees, oh, I'm overlapping with an X or more region. Let's do something useful there. But, like, there should be a version of that rule that cares about region size instead of overlapping with some other region. So, like, let's just forget it. I have a lot of regions that are useless. And so anytime I can trim one, like, I guess that's nice, right? Okay, so let's get rid of this filter. See, this region is still a disaster. Or this puzzle, rather. Ah, no, these are all the hidden ones, right? So with hint mode on, you can see this, and there was a... This is where I started, I think. I said... Well, actually, this region I manually set the visibility for, I think. Yeah. Hint mode doesn't bother including this. But I thought, shouldn't the one or more here... Because this 5 should produce a 1 or more when overlapped with this. Because this region... Because the 2 mines in here are constraining for this region. And indeed it does produce the 1 or more. And so that's what got me looking at the filter. Is like... Should the 1 or more overlapping with the 0 here do something in this area even without the 5? I'm not sure. Like, it says no. Oops. Oh man, what have I done? And so I was poking around in this area to see if the regions left over there were interesting. I guess I could apply the filter before I start asking for a clue. If I know there's something interesting in this area, I could say throw away clues that only look down there. Yeah, so it gives me these 4 clues. Like, this one sucks. Why do I need this? Really? Yeah, I don't know. I'm out of here. Whatever. I generated some... looking at that puzzle gave me the idea to improve my visibility rules a little bit. I also, like, trashed... I had a rule that was, like... If there's... In the past, I had a visibility rule saying... In a region of size X, if the clue is, like, X or fewer, just throw it away. And then I decided, you know what, leave that, because X or fewer is kind of, like, a useful rule to intersect with. But then I saw that it had regions of size 2 that were labeled with, like, oh, and there's not more than 6 mines in here. And I said, okay, that one we can throw away. So if you're cluing... even more than could fit in the region, I do throw that away. But if your clue is exactly the region size, I think I leave that alone. So here's just 2. And once again, we see this, like, interplay of positive and negative views of the same group of cells. But it's not as straightforward as the ones I was looking at before, which makes sense, because if it were straightforward, the game would automatically solve it with the computer and not bother me with it. Because I had written this, you know, when they overlap, but there's not enough space outside, or when there's, like, I don't know, when... Like, if this cell didn't exist as a negative cell, or weren't in the region at all, then my previous rule would solve it, because it would say, oh, there's only space for 1 out here, so, like, this is effectively a 1 or more region that's the opposite of this, and, you know, it would do some cool stuff. But now the fact that we can sneak a mine here and here, I guess, is enough that that rule doesn't apply. But some version of it must. So what if I just looked here? Is that... Do I get a more interesting... No, it's the same ones. And if I say, don't tell me about that cell, it's... Is it still solvable? I guess I must not quite understand how the filter works, because, okay. So the filter is just cosmetic. It just adjusts what I'm shown. It doesn't feed back to hint that says, hey, the guy wants a hint that doesn't affect these cells. Because hint mode gives me the same hint, and it just doesn't show me one of the important clues. Okay. I assume... Right. This one or more clue is sufficient. I don't actually need the one clue, right? Yes. But like my previous, clearly the idea of this interaction is the same as the previous interactions I was working with, where maybe we can clear the filter actually. The interplay between these two regions is these three cells. And of course, they have negative opinion. They have inverse opinions about the polarity of these two cells, because this is a negative clue and this is a positive clue. So any clue, any cells they look at, they'll have opposite opinions about. And so any mine I place here, for example, constrains this region and relaxes this region. Mines placed in one of these two cells constrain this region and relax this region. But what do I do with that? Because it doesn't... Well... I don't think I can do what I was doing before and just like derive a new one or more region over here. I don't think that's true. Well, I mean, it sort of is, but maybe only because of reasons tied to specific sizes of these regions. I'm not sure. Ah, no, bring me back hint mode. I got confused. Okay, I just wanted to turn off the green lights, but clicking hint undoes the hint. Okay, so yeah, but not this one. Bring me back. This one? So now that both of these have visibility set by the user, hint mode should bring them back to me every time. For example, if I just clear this. Yeah, okay. Like, if this two or more could escape out to just here, then I couldn't say there's one or more here in this region, right? So the size of this runoff is important. And I have a rule about this somewhere. This one, I think. So how would this rule apply here? What would it tell me? Because let's start, I guess, by saying what region we want our rules to derive. And I think what we want is a one or more among these three cells. I guess, first of all, is that region already there? Oh, it is. Okay, hang on. Well, let's not work on this rule yet. So maybe my rule got this just exactly right. So where did this come from? Yeah, it came from this rule. Okay. This 2 or more overlapping with this 1 or more. Okay, perfect. That's exactly what I thought we wanted to derive, but it isn't enough to solve the puzzle. Which makes sense, I guess. A 1 or more here in these 3 cells, you know, is one of these 2 and not this, or all 3 of them. I guess in a sense, no. Well, let's actually make this 1 or more visible, even though it isn't really necessary, just so we can talk about it a little bit. This region is a little bit like saying this cell here implies both of these cells, which is true. If there's a mine here, there's definitely a mine in both of these. But it's a little bit stronger than that. It also means even if this mine isn't true, there's at least one mine in this area. All right. So there's something about this interplay that's more powerful than just deriving 1 or more here. What is it? Well, suppose we tried to fill in both of these 2, and then said, that's it for the 2+ region, it's satisfied, it's got 2 mines, I'm not putting any more in it positively or negatively. We would then run into a problem, because this 1 or more region would have a total of -2. And to get out of it, we would have to put a mine here, here, and here. And that's fine. That would make the 1 or more region happy. But it would contradict our earlier claim that we weren't going to put anything else into the 2+ region. So in a sense, these 3 cells can contribute at most 1 to the total of the 2 or more region. And so we should be able to derive a 1 or more among these 2 cells. And I bet we don't have that yet, right? If I clear him to look at just these. I have a 0 or more. But I don't have a 1 or more. So where did this 0 or more come from? So I think this was a rule that I, created accidentally when I was working on something else, and I was like, oh, it'll be sort of useful. But I bet if I could say, I don't know. I bet there's some version of this rule that would let me make this a 1 or more. Because, okay, let's look at this again. It got this 2 or more? What? Okay. How do I... Oh, because this one's negative, I guess? Or something? I don't know. No, because these 2 are negative and this isn't. Okay, fine, whatever. Overlapping with this 2 or fewer in this region. Well, obviously there are 2 or fewer. This region is visible, huh? This region is pretty stupid. Let's... If there are... If you had an X or fewer, X plus 1 or fewer in a region of size X or fewer, then this really is not telling you anything. We can trash this region. Yeah, I guess I didn't really want... Okay. So over here, I still obviously don't have the region that I need. We still derived this 0 or more, but we must have derived it from somewhere else, because the thing we derived it from... What am I... Oh, clear... Clear filter? Okay. I somehow told the filter to tell me, show me no clues. So this 0 or more should be a 1 or more. And I feel like if I could somehow constrain based on the size of these, the union of these two sections, maybe I could get somewhere, but I can't quite. So the 1 or more here is what we actually have to derive, I think. But it's only true, again, because of how much space there is out here. If this region reached a little further, then we wouldn't necessarily have 1 in between these two cells, because we could put 2 in here. So... Maybe I want to say, like, because the size of this region is not bigger than the size of this region. Something. Right? Like I want those two... This whatever rule I want to design here depends on the amount of runoff space that this region has to counteract the influence of the other region. These 3 cells contribute a total of at most 1 to the 2. Oops, get out of filter mode. Because why, though? Because if you filled in 2 of them, you'd have a problem. But, like, I don't know how to say that. Yeah, I don't know. This region eludes me. This puzzle. I'm sure there's something powerful to be done there, and it would solve a lot of puzzles, but I don't get it. Yeah, forget this. Really? This is it? Well, that certainly impact like that I understand why that's an issue. 0 or more here means that if there's a mine here, there's also one here. But there can't be, because this says there's an odd number of mines. The problem is this is going to be a very specific, like, it only applies because the regions are size 2, right? If, like... Well... If this part were larger, then I'd have no idea. But I guess making this part larger doesn't really matter necessarily, because every mine here has to be canceled out by a mine here, at least. So as long as this part is size... Okay, so... I think this is true. As long as this part is size 1, if this part isn't, then we can say... Like, this is a mine? Yeah. Very specific, though, huh? I don't like writing a rule that places a bomb, because it suggests I'm not being general enough. But I don't know. 0 or more is kind of important. I guess... No, you can do better than this. Come on. So the same thing would apply if this were like 5 or more, and this said 6 plus 2k, right? So we can at least increase all of these clues by x and get a more general rule. So if this were an x or more, and this were an x plus 1 plus 2k, as long as there's only space for one mine, well, for x plus 1 mines, I think. Then I think I can say there's no mines in the negative part, can't I? Yes. It's still a pretty specific rule, though. Could I do better? I don't know. I don't immediately see it. Just write that in and... So I dismissed the rule immediately, but I do want to see how it's doing. Did I switch game modes? Oh, I did. Wow. Yeah, Yeah, I mean, it doesn't fire that much, but it fires a little. Sure. Triangle land is hell, man. There's so much connectivity between everything. Oh, this is only 2 regions. But they're overlapping in such a psychotic way. Ugh. I mean, this is probably the same puzzle as the one I gave up on a minute ago. Zero or more here. I assume 1 or more in this area is what I actually need, right? Not the 1. Okay, filter, please. To just these squares. And there should be... Oh, that's interesting. There's a 1 or more here, and a 1 or more here with negatives. Couldn't I just overlap these 2 and throw away this one? Because this is strictly more powerful? That's kind of cool. If I had an X or more... both of these. I believe I can just junk the one that doesn't have negative parts. Yeah. That should help a little. Okay. But what I was trying to do was find this. Yeah, okay, I have these, sure. This one's probably interesting, but not right now. Anyway, none of these need junking. I wanted to get this region out. And say, hint me again. And indeed, it does just throw away the 1 region. All I needed was the 1 or more interacting with the 0 or more. So we're basically saying, I think, that like... These parts where they overlap should in some sense cancel out, right? Because... you know, a mine here relaxes this region but constrains this one. And a mine here relaxes this region but constrains this one. And so, like, maybe I can form some other region out of their combination? But what would the total be? Right? I don't think I can actually do that. Well, let's think about the total number of mines in these 2 regions. It's 1 or more, right? And I'm sort of claiming that any mine in this inner area Well, it's not that it doesn't count. But it sort of needs to be canceled out by an opposite polarity mine in that area. So maybe in that sense it doesn't count. Like, my question is, I guess, could I, ignoring variables for the moment, could I just say we have a one or more region that is here, but negative here, and negative here? I could. Now, if I start putting X's and question marks in, things may get interesting. But, like... yeah. So maybe I can just, like, put an X and a Y and everything's gonna be just cozy? If I say, then, X or more, let's do this for now. We'll figure out if we can make it negative, which I think we can. Here, and Y here. Can this be an X plus Y or more? It can. Okay. And I think this could extend to negative numbers as well. Do you need to, like, in that case have... I don't think I can write, like, x minus 8, x minus 9, and y minus 9, because then this would have to be, like, x plus y minus 18, which I can't write. But, I don't know. I could make them both by minus 4. I don't know why this hasn't occurred to me before. It seems like it would have solved a lot of previous puzzles. It just doesn't seem like it's true, but I guess it is. So if I said x minus 4 and y minus 4 here, could I then say x plus y minus 8? I could. Okay, I mean, that's probably cool. Yeah. Oh no. I've descended into hell. This rule fires too much. This was the straw that broke the camel's back of my rules not descending into infinity. If I pause this rule, yeah, see, as soon as I do this, it just goes crazy. If I make it minimum priority, I'm sure it's just as bad, because it just runs out of other ideas and starts doing this. Generated 1,000 regions. I assume this is what I currently have set to the max. And I think there was some way to change what the max number of regions is. Like, right now it hasn't, like, run out of ideas, I think. It's just run out of space. Or maybe, I don't know. If I just, like, trash regions at random, it doesn't seem to be making new ones. Yeah, so this is a cool rule, in a sense, but it usually generates, like, a lot of problems. Like, it fires way too much. It's not... There's no reason for me to suppose this will be productive. But it seems like, I mean, it kind of is. I don't know. I'm making a smaller region than the one I started with, but not smaller enough, I guess. And then this overlaps with a bunch of other regions and makes smaller versions of those, and everything just gets diced up really thin, huh? I mean, maybe having it at minimum priority is okay, because we won't, like, get to it until we've run out of other ideas. But the problem is it's going to make hints awful, right? Like, I just pressed the hint button and we're just churning away through a million of these regions. Like, just on this level alone, it's applied this rule 2,200 times. That seems wrong. How can that be? There aren't 2,200 regions, and this should always generate some, right? I mean, I could limit it to say only do this if there's at least one in each of these, I guess. I'm going to let this hint run to completion so I can see if it at least like has led to a high quality hint that involves a region produced by this. I suspect it hasn't. Oh, a bunch of these regions suck in really obvious ways. So maybe I could just trash the ones that suck. Yeah, like these regions are fine, but you know, we generated like -8 or more, right? Like this is just awful. If I immediately trash this, we might be looking okay. Although I think trashed regions still count for something. I don't know. But at least this would stop interacting with other regions and producing more demon spawn horrible regions, right? So if can I add to rule, well, add to rule constructor. Yeah, so this is another case of like I need a special. I wrote the rule for this for 1 or for 2 or something, but I can't use negative offsets to achieve what I want here, I think. So if there are at most 8, give me back to positive numbers. If there are 8 or fewer cells here, then of course the answer is -8 or more, and we can just junk this rule, right? Same thing here. If there are 6 or fewer here, we can junk this region. And so maybe we'll make some progress this way, just like have that rule generate a bunch of trash, but at least the trash can get cleaned up quickly and we can get back to doing something interesting. Or add to rule constructor. I don't know. Maybe this isn't a productive line of thought. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll have to give up on the rule completely. But at least the really awful regions it generates, I can get rid of, I hope. And then maybe I can keep around the slightly productive rule. -7 or more. Oh, edit. I meant this to be 7 or fewer. There we go. And I guess I can just duplicate this and say 5 or fewer. -7 or more. -5 or more. Yeah, Yeah, so this area is mostly trash. This one, again, we could... Don't care about this. If there are 2 or fewer here, we can trash this. If there are 4 or fewer here, we can trash this. Threes, yeah. If there are 3 or fewer here, we can trash it. I mean, now, most of these regions are not completely insane. Well, this one is. -1 or more. Yeah, so maybe we could say... Actually, I already have a rule like this. It's one of the first ones I wrote. Well, I want to say if it's -x or more, but I can't let x be negative. And if I said like, oh, x minus 9 or more, sure, x could be 0 and then I have a -9 rule, but then I can't actually trash because it would also apply when x is like 20 and it was an 11 or more region I would trash. So... So you could just say, no matter the size of this region, just throw it away. Right? It can't, if it has no negative part. Yeah, see? Same. So, I don't know. This is a lot of menial labor for a rule that mostly didn't do anything very good for me. But it's kind of nice to have these trash rules anyway, I guess. Because then if I ever do generate such a horrible rule... region for some other reason, it gets trashed as well. But my recollection is trash rules still cost you something. Not just the time spent to generate them, but they bump up against region limits or something. Ooh, a -9, how exciting. So if there are 9 or fewer here, we can trash this. Like, what the hell is this? -2 or more. I guess this is sort of useful. In that it's telling me they can't all 3 be mines. Right? This is meaningful. But I could also just turn this into a positive rule and say, well, there's 2 or fewer in this area, right? This is kind of interesting, actually. If... But I can't write this rule in a general sense because I have to let x... I have to use a negative offset. If I said there are like x minus 2, the problem is that if that number straddles to become positive, I don't know, I can't, ugh. Most of the really junk regions are gone now. I don't want to say they're all gone, but most of them seem to be. So how bad is it back in, like, Hexville? It's bad. Like, if I take that newest rule here and pause it and refresh regions here, it's not really any worse. Well, maybe it is. No, it generates the same number of visible regions. Oh, whoops. Pause. No, it generates more visible regions, yeah. So if I let it go, it generates a bunch of trash plus a bunch of, like, sort of useless regions. But they're not completely useless, I think. I don't know. This is kind of where I bump into the limit of my understanding. Like, I've defined a truth about the universe, but it's a dangerous truth, right? It leads to infinite regress of, like, it just makes a mess. It wanders into, you know, circular reasoning that doesn't get anywhere until there are hundreds of useless regions. Yeah, see, instead of 58 visible regions, we have 252 this way. So I just don't think this rule is going to be a good idea. I think I should leave it paused. The problem is it does actually produce something interesting on occasion, right? And I don't know how to quantify when. And all of the trash rules that I needed to deal with it, they're fine. They're useful enough on their own. I'll leave them in. But I think I might just not turn this rule back on, even though it did solve 1,000 cells. It's just a bad and it could be useful to turn on in some scenarios maybe, but it's not good to have on all the time, I think. 6? You tell me I need 6 regions to understand this puzzle? Yeah, now 4, but they still kind of stink. So I remember these 0 or 2s were powerful. So, like, for example, one thing you were able to do with 0 or 2s that are size 2, like, they're both the same, right? So this region here uses these 3 cells. If you wanted, you could derive another region that uses these 2 cells and this one, because we know it's the same as this one from this size 2, 0, or 2. But it's just so... That's another rule that just explodes with regions. It just puts regions everywhere, because you're putting them down and you have no idea whether they're going to be useful. And the same thing's happening here, actually. There's a 0 or 2 here, of course. It's sort of telling us the same thing as this 2K. So we could use that to cause these 2 regions to interact with each other more directly. Right now they're being mediated by these 2 0 or 2 bridges. The problem is, again, that's just going to spew out a ton of regions. It's going to explore any combination of ways you could use a 0 or 2 to bridge to a different area. And just, there'll be way too many. I don't think that's a good idea. But I don't know how else to solve this. This is at least a kind of smaller problem, I guess. Well, maybe not. It still has a bunch of regions interacting. Here there's just 3. Is that manageable? This is sort of interesting. I'm sure I had something about this in my old Positive Minds Only era. But the idea is that we know the parity between these areas is odd from this mine. And the total parity of like this area plus this area must be odd also, right? Because it's 1 plus 2 is 3 and they don't overlap. So the parity of this area must be even, which means it's 0. But if I just define a parity rule here, it's going to be awful. Because the rule would be anytime 2, and we could go get the this. We could go get, oh whoops, no. Make this visible. And, oops, not clear filter. Make this visible. Clear the filter, refresh regions, give me the hint again. Based on the ones I forced to be visible. Oh. Oh, because I refreshed regions, all my forced visibility doesn't apply anymore. I didn't exactly mean to refresh regions, I think. I meant to just refresh the hint. But this is interesting. It's an even simpler problem. Huh. What's the general answer here? I mean, obviously, like, this region has to be a 2, because if it were 0, there wouldn't be room for enough mines out here, right? Well, I think you can do that with variables reasonably well, right? If you have an x or x plus 2, I guess is where I want to go. That is within a region. Don't care about this size, but there's... is that really what I want? Like this region here, if this were like a 4 plus, but it had 2 more spaces, the same would still be true. There would only be room for at most 3 outside, and there'd be at least 1 inside, right? So I want some variable here. Which I guess is x plus y or more? Kind of. X plus y plus 1, where there's only space. Or maybe what I mean is not x plus y, but just y. So what if I said there are y cells exactly here, and y plus 1 or more out here? You can only fit y cells in here. So there's at least 1 that spills over into this. Well, sure, but 1 is not that impactful. Don't I want an x somewhere? So maybe this is x plus y plus 1, and this is x plus y exactly? No. So I want the x to interact here. So maybe what I mean is there are y cells here. Then this region is actually an x plus 2? That's true. Oh, I did it. Okay. Oof. Yeah, so you can only fit y of the x plus y plus 1 cells out here. Actually, do I even need the plus 1? Let's find out. I do. So at least x plus 1, yes, okay. This region can only fit y of its mind, so at least x plus 1 of them have to fall in here, which means this is actually an x plus 2, not an x, because we know it has at least x plus 1 lines. Nice. Doesn't fire a ton, but it always clears cells when it does, which is not a surprise. Well, I mean, not all. Maybe sometimes it doesn't, but it clears more cells than it creates regions anyway. So these, I mean, I've got a lot of these down to just, 1 or 2 troubling. I didn't actually mean to skip there, I just misclicked. 1 or 2 troubling puzzles, which, I mean, is pretty good. I just wish I could get more. There's nothing special about marking all of them in a cell, like, right? But it just feels good. What is this? Like, I could move on to this column, and it's fine. I probably will someday. But I feel like understanding the basic, like, the fundamentals of what's going on in all these cells is sort of more important than just, like, addressing more interesting kinds of clues. So I guess what's happening here is that we know the parity of this cell because we should know the parity of this region somehow. Well, no. We don't know the parity of this entire region, but we do know the parity of where it overlaps with this, right? Because we have either this cell or this cell, but not both. I know it's been over an hour, but, like, I don't know. I'm in the middle of something, even though I just started a new puzzle. I try to aim for like an hour on these, because I just could get lost in here forever if I didn't stop at some point. So... we know that between these two cells, there's exactly 1. We also know that between these two cells, there's exactly 1, but that's not important because it doesn't affect the parity of this area. So is there some implication rule that would be helpful here? I guess, like, yes. I could say... Well, no. A mine here implies no mine here. And a mine here implies no mine here. But that's not like implies, that's just there's one mine between these two spaces. I'm a little tempted to just say anytime a region like this, -2 or 1, that's size exactly 3, overlaps with a parity rule, then you can figure out the parity of these two cells, right? Like, I don't love it, but stuff near 0 is weird, and I often can't write a general version of that rule. So for any parity rule, even like x minus 9 plus 2k, we can determine the parity of this, which is 1. Well, we can even just tell there's 1 actual mine. We don't need parity, right? Let's get out of here. Like, that's probably good. Yeah. And it cleared 2 cells. What is this? So here's another one of these minus... Well, we were looking before at -2/1. This is a -1/2, so it should be pretty similar, I would think. There's either a mine here or both of these, right? I'm surprised there's no parity region mine in this area. I guess it makes sense. We don't know the parity of this. Well, no, we do. It's 1. Right? So this... Why doesn't this generate... I thought I had... Maybe I never defined a big old parity region, but like, if I have a... If this region is of size exactly x, no matter what x is... No, wait. Isn't its parity then... Its parity is that of x, isn't it? Well, x minus 9 in this case. Yeah. Because there are x minus 9 mines in the positive part, plus any number of pairs going between the positive and negative part. Great. It's gone off 160 times and never done anything useful. But I think that's just because we don't have... I want to bring this up to be a real parity, like 1 plus 2k. And obviously I could just do that. I could say, get rid of x. There's 1 plus 2k here. But if you try to make this general, well, maybe at some point I feel like I tried just writing all the fixed versions of this. If you try to do something general and say, oh, if you have x minus 9 plus 2k, then you also have, this is x plus, x minus 9 plus 2k. You also have x minus 7 plus 2k. But that's not true. X, dang it, I went to plus again. X minus 7. Right, but that isn't true. It's only true if x is negative. So I think it sort of makes sense to just write versions of these parity extending rules to get you up to positivity. And then you can throw away the negative ones when you're done. We got a star. So then you kind of want to say, look, if this overlaps with a minus 1 plus 2k rule, I want question marks here and zeros here. If these are the same region, then you can delete the negative one. Right, and then you can do similar things for all the others. If you make like minus 3 become 1, minus 3 plus 2k become 1 plus 2k, you would want to trash the crummy region in the middle, the negative one that you started with. Okay, well, it's sort of nice to get another little star before we go, but now I think I really should leave. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.